The blood on the linen was wrong. Iris Mercer knew it before she reached the royal infirmary. The bundle was heavy against her arms, still damp from the wolf sanctuary, and the metallic smell of fresh blood had soaked through the cloth. But beneath it was something sharper, bitter enough to catch at the back of her throat. Under the infirmary lamps, she saw the stain clearly. Green-black saliva dried along one edge, dark blood crusted beneath it, and faint streaks where the animal's limbs had dragged in spasms. "This isn't fever," she said. Master Healer Corvin looked up from the nobleman's hand he was bandaging. His eyes moved from Iris's face to the gray-brown laundress apron over her dress. "What did you say?" "The wolf that bled on this linen. I don't think it has a fever. The saliva—" A council guest near the hearth laughed. "Perhaps the laundress should diagnose the sheets." Two younger healers smiled. Corvin crossed the room, took the top linen between two fingers, glanced at it for less than a heartbeat, and dropped it back into her arms. "You wash the blood," he said. "You don't tell educated men where it came from." Heat crawled up Iris's neck, but she kept her chin level. "The smell is metallic, and there are tremor marks in the blood." Corvin's mouth hardened. "Scrub the entire bundle before supper. Boil it twice." Iris looked down at the stains. If she obeyed, whatever was in them would be gone. "Yes, Master Healer." She carried the linens out while laughter followed her into the corridor. The laundry room below the infirmary was empty except for steam, soap, and rain against the narrow windows. Iris laid the sheets across a wooden table instead of dropping them into the wash vat. The bitter scent pulled at an old memory, her father's hands turning the pages of an herb book, his voice telling her that poison rarely announced itself by name. Look at what the body does. Look at when it begins. Never let a title decide what your eyes can already see. Elias Mercer had been dead 15 years, executed for poisoning Queen Seraphine. His name was still spoken in Frostmere as though it meant treachery. Iris had survived by making sure no one connected that name to her. She bent closer to the linen. Muscle spasms, darkened blood, bitter metal residue. The pattern was incomplete, but enough to frighten her. By dusk, she had washed every sheet except a narrow strip cut from an inner fold and hidden inside her sleeve. No one noticed. Laundresses were useful that way. People saw their work and forgot the women doing it. Near midnight, Iris carried folded cloth past the rear kitchens and slowed when two stable boys spoke beside the woodpile. "Ember didn't come to feed again. Master says she's sick. Frost won't leave her." Iris kept walking until the boys disappeared. Then she turned toward the old herb cupboard beside the washroom. 10 minutes later, a small glass bottle was hidden beneath her cloak. She knew exactly how foolish this was. The royal wolves belonged to the crown. Entering their sanctuary without permission could cost her position. Giving one medicine without authorization could cost far more. But if she waited for the healers who had laughed at the stains, Ember might be dead by morning. Snow had begun falling when Iris reached the sanctuary wall. She slipped through a narrow service gap behind the feed shed and landed in frozen grass. The enclosure stretched black and silver beneath the moon. No howling. That frightened her more. "Ember?" she whispered. A weak scraping sound came from near the pines. The young gray wolf lay on her side, legs jerking against the snow. Foam clung to her muzzle. A thin line of blood darkened her teeth. Iris dropped beside her. "No, stay with me." Ember snapped blindly when Iris reached for her jaw. Bootsteps sounded beyond the wall. Guards. Iris froze. She could still run. The gap was less than 20 feet behind her. Ember convulsed again. Iris uncorked the bottle. "You're going to hate me for this." She caught the wolf beneath the jaw, waited for the spasm to pass, and poured a measured mouthful of antidote between her teeth. Ember thrashed hard enough to knock Iris sideways. The guards' voices drew closer. For several terrible seconds, nothing changed. Then Ember coughed. Her body went still. Ember? The wolf dragged in one ragged breath, then another. Iris shut her eyes. Good girl. A low growl rolled through the darkness. Frost stood 10 paces away. The ancient wolf was enormous despite his age. Silver coat pale beneath the snow, one ear torn and muzzle almost white. Iris had heard that he once bit a man's forearm to the bone for approaching Queen Seraphine's old saddle. He came toward her slowly. Iris stayed still. Frost stopped close enough that his breath warmed her fingers. He smelled the antidote first. Then hair. His old eyes lifted to hers. Instead of baring his teeth, Frost lowered his head and pressed his muzzle into her open palm. Iris forgot how to breathe. A man's voice came from behind her. Frost hasn't done that for a stranger in 11 years. She twisted around. Alpha King Kael Blackthorne stood between two black pines, tall and broad beneath a dark winter coat. Snow caught in his nearly black hair. He wore no crown. He did not need one. Iris scrambled to her feet. Your Majesty. His silver-gray eyes dropped to Ember, then to the bottle in Iris's hand. He stepped closer. Kael's nostrils flared. His gaze sharpened at the moonroot scent rising from the uncorked bottle. For one instant, pain crossed his face. Then he came nearer. His attention shifted, not to the medicine, to her. Iris's pulse stumbled. The Alpha King's expression went utterly still. I've smelled you before. Iris stared at him. That's impossible. No. His voice had gone very quiet. Frost remained pressed against her hand. Kael looked at Iris as though the darkness had opened and shown him a ghost. It was the night my mother died. All the warmth left Iris's face. Kael saw it. Who are you? Kael's question seemed to strike the snow harder than the wind. Iris lowered her hand from Frost's muzzle and curled her fingers around the small bottle. For one reckless second, she considered lying badly enough to end the conversation. A servant. A laundress. No one you remember. But Kael was watching her too closely. My name is Iris. I know the name you gave the castle. Her stomach tightened. Behind him, the approaching guards grew louder. Kael lifted one hand without looking away from her. Leave us. Your Majesty. Now, bootsteps retreated. Iris hated how quickly the world obeyed him. Kael looked toward Ember. The young wolf's breathing had steadied, though her legs still trembled. What did you give her? An antidote. For what? I don't know yet. His eyes hardened. You entered my sanctuary carrying medicine for a poison you claim you cannot name. I entered because your healers were calling it fever. That isn't an answer. It's the only one I have. Kael moved closer. The distance between them shrank enough that Iris noticed the cold on his coat, the faint scent of pine and leather, the dangerous stillness in him. Some instinct told her not to step back. For a moment, the air between them felt too narrow. Iris could hear his breathing, could feel the heat of him despite the snow. Frost watched them both with unsettling attention. His nostrils flared again. You were there, he said. Where? The East Medical Corridor. 15 years ago. Iris's pulse jumped. She remembered torchlight, running feet, her father's voice telling her to stay outside. A dark-haired boy passing so quickly she had seen little more than blood on his hand. She kept her expression flat. I was 15 years ago. That doesn't answer me either. No, it doesn't. Then Ember whimpered. Iris turned away first. The wolf's gums were still pale. Iris checked her pulse, then reached for the water bowl beside the shelter. Don't. Kael's voice cut through the dark. Iris looked over her shoulder. Why? If you suspect poison, don't touch anything. I need to know what she drank. And I need to know whether you're the person who poisoned her. The words landed cleanly. There it was. Not trust, not gratitude. Suspicion. Somehow, that was easier to understand. Then watch. She took a clean wooden spoon from the feed shelf. From Ember's untouched meat tray, she scraped a trace of fat into it and added 1 drop of antidote. Nothing. Then she dipped a second spoon into the water bowl and added the same drop. The liquid clouded faintly at the edges. Kael crouched beside her. What does that mean? The herb is binding to something in the water. Could the bowl be contaminated? Yes. So you haven't proven the water was poisoned? No. Iris glanced at him. I've proven we should stop guessing. Something almost like approval moved through his expression. A gate opened behind them. Master Healer Corvin entered with 2 attendants, irritation visible before he saw Iris kneeling beside the wolf. What is she doing here? Kael stood. Corvin stopped. Your Majesty, I was told Ember had worsened. She did. The healer looked at Iris and the bottle in her hand. You allowed a laundress to medicate a royal wolf? I arrived after she had already done it. Then she should be removed before she does more damage. Ember lifted her head. Weakly, but clearly. Kael looked at the wolf, then at Corvin. Would Ember be alive if she had waited for you? Silence. Corvin's face reddened. Your Majesty, with respect, the girl has no formal training. Iris stood, brushing snow from her skirt. Yesterday, that meant I was too ignorant to recognize poison, she said. Tonight it means I shouldn't be allowed to treat it. Corvin stared at her. Kael's attention shifted to Iris. She met his eyes. Truth seems to improve when a king repeats it. A muscle moved in Kael's jaw. Take samples from the meat and water, Kael ordered. Separate attendants. No one handles both. Corvin hesitated. Now. The healer left. Kael turned back to Iris. You enjoy testing the limits of your position. No. I dislike being reminded of them. Wind cut through the trees. Iris suppressed a shiver. Kael noticed. He removed his heavy black cloak and held it toward her. No. His brows drew together. You're freezing. If I leave here wearing the king's cloak, tomorrow no one will remember the wolf. What will they remember? You. The answer caught him off guard. After a moment, Kael lowered the cloak. He did not argue. Instead, he opened the brazier's iron vent and dragged it closer to where Iris worked. Then he positioned himself on the windward side of her without comment. The heat reached her hands first. Iris looked at him once, then returned to Ember. When Corvin's attendants came back, the result matched what she had seen. The meat showed nothing. The water reacted. Kael stared at the cloudy sample. Until we know what is in that supply, no wolf drinks from the sanctuary troughs. He turned to Iris. And until I know who is doing this, you will return every night and treat them. Iris straightened. Because you trust me? No. The answer came without hesitation. Then Kael looked down as Ember pushed her nose weakly against Iris's wrist. But she does. For the next 4 nights, Iris entered the royal sanctuary through the front gate. The change unsettled her more than sneaking ever had. Guards who would have dragged her out a week ago now stepped aside because Kael had ordered it. Some stared, others pretended not to. Iris felt every look as she crossed the yard carrying her satchel. Kael was always there before her. On the first night, she found him kneeling beside Ember, one hand beneath the wolf's injured paw while he cleaned dried blood from between the pads. He wore no gloves. You know how to do that? Iris asked. He glanced up. I was raised with them. Kings are raised with wolves. Blackthorns are. Ember shifted. Kael immediately loosened his grip instead of forcing her still. Iris noticed. By the second night, they had developed a rhythm neither acknowledged. Iris examined gums, pupils, tremors, and appetite, while Kael recorded times and quantities. He remembered every wolf by name. He knew which one hated iron bowls, which one refused meat if strangers stood too close, which one needed an old shoulder rubbed before cold weather. Iris had expected a ruler who owned wolves. Instead, she found a man who belonged to them almost as much as they belonged to him. That realization was dangerous. So was the way Kael watched her when she worked. Sometimes Iris would reach for a vial and find his gaze already on her hand. Sometimes he turned before she spoke, as though her scent reached him before her voice did. Once, when she leaned across him to check Ember's breathing, his shoulders went rigid beneath his dark shirt. Neither mentioned it. Across those 4 nights, 3 sudden downturns disturbed the pack. Ember twice, and a younger male once. Each followed a freshwater delivery, and each forced Iris and Kael to compare the sanctuary log with the castle's supply records. On the 4th night, Iris spread 3 marked pages across the feeding table. These are the worst episodes. Kael leaned beside her, close enough that his arm brushed hers. She felt the contact after he moved. 3 nights, he said. Look at the water deliveries. His finger tracked the marks. Different attendants. Not the attendants. The route. All 3 deliveries had been diverted through the east cistern because of temporary maintenance farther up the main line. Kael's expression sharpened. You think someone is using the cistern. I think every serious collapse happened after water passed through it. That's correlation. Iris looked at him. Good. You're learning. A low sound escaped him, almost a laugh. They crossed the lower courtyard before dawn. The east cistern entrance sat beneath the old eastern wall, sealed by an iron door. 2 works office guards stood outside. Kael approached. Open it. The older guard bowed quickly. Your Majesty, I can't. Kael went still. The cistern is under frost maintenance restriction. Structural risk. No entry until the works master clears it. I am clearing it. The guard reached for the key. Wait, Iris said. Kael's eyes narrowed. Why? If someone is poisoning the wolves through that cistern, forcing the door tells them exactly what we know. I could seal the works office before they hear. You could. She held his gaze. And if the person is already inside your court? That stopped him. The instinct to command was visible in his face. Finally, Kael stepped back. Leave the door sealed. They returned toward the sanctuary as morning light grayed the snow. You dislike being told no, Iris said. I dislike locked doors inside my own castle. That sounds familiar? His glance cut toward her. A voice behind them said, Your Majesty. Lord Garrick Vane approached with 2 council clerks. He was silver-haired, elegantly dressed, and carried the easy warmth of a man certain every room would welcome him. Word reaches council that the royal wolves are ill. They are being treated, Kael said. Garrick's eyes moved to Iris. So this is the laundress. Iris disliked how gently he said it. The one the wolves favor, Garrick continued. His Majesty has always had a weakness for wounded things. His gaze settled on her as though deciding which wound she represented. Iris smiled politely. Then wounded things are fortunate. He notices them before the healers do. One clerk looked down. Kael's mouth twitched. Garrick's smile remained perfect. Sharp as well. Frost emerged from beneath the shelter. The old wolf saw Garrick. His head lowered, shoulders rigid. A growl rolled from his chest. Garrick stopped. Age makes animals suspicious. Perhaps, Iris said. She watched Frost until Garrick moved away. The wolf relaxed only after the counselor disappeared through the arch. Kael had noticed too, but he said nothing until they were alone. Why didn't you let me answer him? Iris closed her satchel. Because I wanted to know whether I could answer him myself. He insulted you. I noticed. I could have stopped him. That's the problem. Kael frowned. Iris faced him. If every insult requires the king to save me, then I'm still powerless. For a moment, he only looked at her. The sanctuary was quiet around them. And if I simply wanted to stand beside you, he asked. Something in his voice changed the air between them. Iris became aware of how close he was, of pine, cold leather, and smoke, of the silver in his eyes. Her pulse betrayed her. That, she said carefully, would be different. Kael did not move closer, but neither stepped away. The wolf pup sneezed in Kael's face. Iris stared at him. For one stunned second, the Alpha King of Frostmere looked less like a man who could silence a council chamber and more like someone deeply offended by 8 pounds of gray fur. Then the pup sneezed again. Iris laughed. The sound escaped before she could stop it, bright and unguarded in the quiet sanctuary. Kael looked at her. What? Nothing. You are laughing at your king. I'm laughing at the expression on your face. His mouth shifted. Dangerous habit. So I've been told. The pup whimpered between them. Its fever had nothing to do with the poisoned water. Iris had checked twice. Warm belly, irritated throat, clear lungs, no tremor pattern, no metallic residue. Ordinary sickness. Almost a relief. She wrapped the animal in a blanket while Kael held a bowl of warm broth. He won't drink if you keep staring at him like that, she said. I am not staring. You are intimidating soup. Kael gave her a flat look, but moved the bowl lower. The pup drank. For nearly an hour, there was no poisoned cistern, no suspicious counselor, no hidden past. Only the crackle of the brazier, snow tapping against the roof, and Kael sitting cross-legged in the straw while the pup slept against his thigh. My mother named every wolf herself, he said suddenly. Iris looked up. Even the ridiculous names? Especially those. What did she name you? His eyes narrowed. Iris smiled. Worth asking. Kael's answering smile was small, but real. It changed his face enough to make her look away. She used to bring me here when council became unbearable, he said. She said wolves were easier because they never pretended not to be angry. Iris thought of her father teaching her to crush dried herbs with the flat of a spoon because her hands had been too small for the mortar. My father used to say. She stopped. Kael waited. When she did not continue, he only adjusted the blanket around the sleeping pup. He did not ask. That silence stayed with Iris long after she left. By noon the next day, Kael had broken it without knowing she had ever valued it. His spymaster stood before him in the West study with a thin file. There is no Iris Mercer before 8 years ago. Kael looked up. No baptismal record, no village registry, no apprenticeship. Nothing that can be verified. Moonroot, the corridor, the scent he had carried in memory for 15 years. Search her room, Kael said. The order came quickly. Too quickly. 2 hours later, a small brass seal lay on his desk. The crest stamped into it was one he had not seen since his mother's death. Mercer. Beside it sat fragments of an apothecary notebook and a child's silver token engraved with the initials I.M. Kael stared at them. Elias Mercer. The man crowned history named as Queen Seraphine's murderer. The child in the corridor had been his daughter. By evening, the secret had already begun to leak. Iris felt it before anyone spoke. Servants who usually ignored her now watched. A kitchen maid went silent when she entered. In the infirmary, Master Healer Corvin pulled a tray of medicines away from her hand. I'll take that. I was told to bring it to the South Ward. I said I'll take it. His gaze dropped to her face. Mercer? The name sounded filthy in his mouth. Another healer looked over. Corvin's expression hardened with recognition. The poisoner's daughter. Iris went cold. She turned and found Kael standing at the end of the corridor. One look at his face told her everything. You searched my room. Iris, you searched my room. Come with me. No? Several servants had stopped nearby. Kael lowered his voice. Not here. You already made it here. The words struck harder than she intended. He dismissed the corridor with one look, and people scattered. Iris stayed. I needed the truth, he said. You needed the truth to belong to you before you could believe it. Your father was accused of killing my mother. My father was executed for it, and you hid who you were. Because of what just happened in this corridor, Kael's jaw tightened. He told her the sanctuary would remain closed to her until the investigation was complete. Then came the guards. 2 of them. Iris looked from their faces to his. What is this? Temporary confinement. The words seemed to hollow out the space between them. Kael continued. Until I know whether someone is using you or whether your identity puts you in danger. Stop. He did. You searched my room. You took my things. Now you're putting guards on my door. This castle may not be safe for you, and you decided that means I don't get to leave it. Kael said nothing. Iris felt something inside her settle into a colder shape. A locked door does not become kindness because a king ordered it. His face changed. I'm trying to keep you alive. You don't get to call it protection when I wasn't allowed to say no. She reached beneath her cloak and pulled out the sanctuary pass he had given her. For a moment, she held it between them. Then she placed it in his hand. His fingers closed around it. You wanted to know whether you could trust me, she said. Kael looked at the pass. Iris stepped back before he could reach for her. Now I know which one of us shouldn't have been asking. The great hall had never felt so large. Iris entered between 2 guards with every eye in Frostmere fixed on her. She had been confined since the previous evening. That morning, Master Healer Corvin had declared Ember stable enough to fulfill the winter feast tradition that placed one royal wolf beside the ceremonial dais. Less than an hour into the feast, Ember had collapsed in front of the court. Corvin had failed to stop the seizures. Only then had they sent for Iris. Now Ember lay on the polished stone, her body jerking hard enough that her claws scraped white lines across the floor. Nobles filled the long tables beneath black and silver banners. Musicians had gone silent. Iris forgot the watching court. She dropped to her knees. Hold her head. No one moved. Now. Kael reached Ember first. He knelt opposite Iris and caught the wolf carefully behind the jaw. His sleeves dragged through spilled wine and blood. Their eyes met for half a second. There was no warmth in Iris's. Kael looked away first. Her pupils? He asked. Uneven. Same as before? Worse. Ember convulsed beneath his hands. Iris opened her satchel, measured antidote, and forced herself to work while hundreds of people watched the laundress they had already begun calling Mercer. The wolf's breathing slowed. Not normal, but no longer failing. A murmur moved through the hall. Iris reached for another vial. Searched the bag. The order came from one of the senior council lords. Kael looked up. Lord Garrick Vane stood 3 steps below the dais, his expression grave rather than triumphant. Your Majesty, Garrick said, a royal animal has been poisoned during a crown ceremony. No one in this hall should be exempt from examination. His tone was perfectly reasonable. That made Iris afraid. Kael's gaze moved to her satchel, then to her. He did not stop the guards. One stepped forward. Iris pulled the bag toward herself. Don't. The guard hesitated. Kael said, let them. Something inside her went still. She released the satchel. The guard emptied it onto the stone. Bandages. Dried moonroot. A bone spoon. 2 glass vials, charcoal, needle thread. Then a small folded packet struck the floor. Gray-green powder spilled from the torn edge. Corvin inhaled sharply. Silverbane. The word traveled faster than shouting. Iris stared at the packet. I didn't put that there. No one answered. Then someone near the northern table whispered, Mercer. Another voice followed. Elias Mercer's daughter. The hall changed. Not loudly. That was worse. Faces turned with recognition. People leaned toward one another. The poisoner's daughter, like father, like daughter. We let her touch the king's wolves. Iris heard Corvin behind her. She knew exactly how to treat them. A woman answered, Of course she did. 4 days ago, Iris had been too ignorant to identify poison because she washed linen. Now the same knowledge was proof she had administered it. She looked at Kael. His face had gone pale beneath the torchlight. He was staring at the Silverbane, then at the moonroot, then at hair. She could smell the winter air on him, leather and smoke, and she saw his nostrils flare when her scent reached him across the small distance between them. His wolf recognized her. His body did too. Something fierce moved through his eyes when a guard stepped closer to her. But it did not matter. He still looked at the evidence and doubted. Garrick descended 1 step. No one is asking for judgment tonight, Your Majesty. His voice carried cleanly. Only lawful inquiry. The girl's father was convicted under this roof. That history makes restraint more necessary, not less. He sounded almost protective of her rights. Iris understood then how dangerous he was. A cruel man would have been easier. Kael stood. For one terrible moment, she thought he would tell them to stop. Instead, he looked at her as though he were trying to force 2 truths into the same shape. The woman who had saved Ember, and the daughter of the man his kingdom called a murderer. He hesitated. Only seconds. Iris saw every one of them. Confine her pending inquiry, Kael said. The words struck harder than the laughter in the infirmary. Harder than Corvin calling her poisoner's daughter. Because this time she had known what Kael's hands felt like beside hers in the straw. She had heard him speak about his mother in a voice meant for no court. She had almost trusted the silence he once gave her. And he had chosen the cage again. The guards approached. Iris rose slowly. 15 years ago, she said, this court decided what my father was before it understood what killed your mother. The hall fell silent. Kael's jaw tightened. Iris looked directly at him. You just did the same thing. Iris. No. He came 1 step closer. Her body reacted before thought. She stepped back. Kael stopped as if she had struck him. The distance between them was only a few feet, but Iris had never felt farther from him. Behind Kael, Ember gave a weak whine. His head turned instinctively toward the sound. So did hers. For a single heartbeat, they were still joined by the same concern. Then the guards closed around Iris. As they led her from the hall, she heard whispers follow. Mercer. Poison. Traitor. She kept her back straight. She would not give them tears. At the doors, Iris looked back once. Kael stood beside Ember with the packet of Silverbane at his feet. Frost had entered from the side passage. The old wolf did not go to Kael. He watched Iris leave. Across the hall, Garrick watched Kael. By the time the door shut, he was already speaking quietly to 2 counselors. The king is too close to this, Garrick murmured. Neither man disagreed. And for the first time, the question moving through Frostmere was no longer whether Iris Mercer could be trusted. It was whether their Alpha King could. The lock on Iris's door was new. That was the first thing she noticed when the guards changed at dawn. The second was that the window latch had been nailed shut. For several minutes she listened to the castle wake around her. Kitchen carts below, boots on stone, chapel bells. ordinary sounds that made confinement feel almost polite. That was the danger of it. A locked room did not become less of a cage because the sheets were clean. Iris waited until the guard outside moved away, then crossed to the old wash cabinet built into the wall. Years earlier, laundresses had used hidden service passages to carry linens between storage and the abandoned apothecary rooms. She had found one by accident. Now she pushed until the warped back panel gave. Cold air breathed through the gap. The tunnel split after 30 yards. One branch descended toward the outer kitchens and a postern gate. Freedom was less than 5 minutes away. She stopped. Her body knew what to do. Leave before the guards realized. Find a road south. Change her name again. Then she remembered the great hall. Like father, like daughter. She remembered Kael's hesitation, and her father's name dragged through 15 years of lies. Iris turned away from the exit. She went deeper into the castle. The abandoned apothecary occupied 3 rooms behind the old infirmary. Dust silvered the shelves. Elias had once told her royal healers kept working notes separate from official reports because kings disliked unfinished conclusions. She searched until her fingers cramped. Behind a false backing in an eastern cabinet, she found a leather notebook swollen with damp, her father's handwriting. For a moment, she could not move. Then she read, "Seraphine rigidity before treatment. Breathing compromised. Discoloration already present. Moonroot administered after collapse." Iris read the line twice. Her father had given moonroot after the queen was already dying, not before. A floorboard creaked behind her. Iris closed the book. Someone was in the outer room. A drawer opened. Papers shifted. Slow, deliberate searching. Not guards. Whoever it was knew what they wanted. Iris slid behind a shelf and held her breath. A shadow crossed the doorway. Then footsteps retreated. The smell came next. Smoke. Flame climbed the bottom of the outer door. Someone had not come to arrest her. They had come to erase the room. Iris tore out the pages containing her father's notes and shoved them beneath her bodice. Fire spread along the dry shelving. She grabbed the notebook, but burning timber crashed between her and the passage. Heat struck her face. She dropped the book. A sheet of flame rolled across the floor. Iris ran for the servant's stair, covering her mouth with her sleeve. Something burning fell from above. She raised one hand. Pain exploded across her palm. She stumbled into the courtyard, coughing hard enough to double over. Someone stopped himself a step away from touching her. Iris. Kael. He was breathing hard, coat half fastened as though he had run there. 2 guards stood behind him, but he waved them away. His gaze went to her burned hand. His wolf sharpened behind his eyes. She saw the instinct, the urge to close the distance, take hold of her, put himself between her and danger. He did not. "Are you hurt?" "My hand." "May I look?" The question stopped her. Yesterday he had searched her room without asking. Yesterday he had ordered her confined. Now he stood close enough that she could smell cold air and smoke on him, waiting for permission to touch her. Iris held out her hand. Kael led her to the stone steps beside the courtyard well and opened a field kit. "What happened to the confinement order?" she asked. "I rescinded it before council." She looked at him. "When they told me you'd escaped, Captain Hale asked whether to pursue. I said no." Kael poured clean water over the burn. Iris flinched. His hand tightened around the cloth, not around her. "I also removed myself as the sole authority over your inquiry. The Crown Magistrate has it now. Council won't like that." "They don't. Neither will Garrick." "No." "Garrick called it weakness," Kael added. 3 counselors demanded I restore the order. "And did you?" "No." That answer should not have mattered to her yet. It did. She hated that some stubborn part of her still measured him by what he did after failing her. Smoke rolled across the courtyard. Kael began wrapping her palm. When I learned whose daughter you were, he said, I was afraid. Of me? Of being wrong about you. That's not the same thing. No. He tied the bandage carefully. I was afraid I wanted you innocent badly enough to miss the truth. So I reached for control instead. The honesty hurt more than an excuse and made me pay for your fear. Yes. No defense. No mention of protection. Iris looked at his bent head. His scent carried smoke now and something restless beneath it. His wolf knew exactly how close she was. So did she. Attraction had not vanished with trust. That almost made her angrier. Kael released her hand. I don't expect forgiveness. Good. He looked up. For one suspended second, the distance between them felt dangerously small. Iris stood. The bandage stayed on her hand. Kael noticed. She pulled the scorched pages from beneath her bodice. I found something. His eyes dropped to Elias's handwriting. Moonroot was given after your mother collapsed. Kael went still. Behind them, the old apothecary roof fell inward in a shower of sparks. Most of Elias Mercer's record disappeared with it, but not all. Ember worsened before sunset. Iris learned it from a stable boy who found her outside the magistrate's rooms, still carrying the scorched pages she had rescued from the fire. By the time she reached the sanctuary, Kael was already there. He stood outside Ember's enclosure. Not inside. Iris slowed. How long? She asked. 10 minutes. Tremors started first. Then she tried to bite through the gate. Kael looked at the latch, then at her. May I come in? Yes. Ember lay against the far wall, panting, pupils blown wide. When Iris approached, the wolf snapped at empty air. This is different, Iris said. From the first attacks? Stronger. Faster. She knelt beside the medical box. I need blood. Kael opened the gate. Ember lunged. He caught her around the chest and shoulders before she reached Iris. The wolf twisted, claws tearing through his sleeve. Now, Kael said through clenched teeth. Iris moved in. She found the vein, filled a narrow glass tube, and pulled back just as Ember convulsed again. Her jaws closed on Kael's forearm. Blood darkened his shirt. Call. Finish. Iris did. Minutes later, Ember lay exhausted beneath a blanket while Iris worked over the blood sample at the sanctuary table. She added a reagent, watched the sediment separate, then frowned. What? The silver bane in her blood isn't behaving like raw powder. Kael looked toward the packet taken from Iris's satchel at the feast. Meaning? Raw silverbane settles. This doesn't. Someone processed it into a mineral suspension so it would stay dispersed in water. She heated a second drop over a lamp. A pale metallic residue formed along the glass. Iris scraped it with the tip of a knife. Silver ash. Kael's expression sharpened. What is that? A binding mineral. You get it when old silver lining is chemically stripped. From pipes? Possibly. Cisterns. Storage vessels. Anything lined with aged silver. It was not an answer yet. But it was a direction. They found Thomas Reed before midnight. The junior engineer lived above the works office with his wife and young son. He went white when Kael laid copies of the East Cistern repair orders on the table. I signed routine inspections, Thomas said. Not these. Your signature is on all three, Kael replied. It's copied. Will you state that before the magistrate? Thomas looked toward the closed bedroom door. No. Iris saw fear before Kael did. Who threatened you? Thomas's face collapsed. My boy was removed from his apprenticeship this morning. A message came with it. Border conscription opens next month. Kael's voice went cold. I can put guards here. No. Thomas backed away. Your guards will be watched. Anyone seen protecting us becomes proof I spoke. Kael's jaw tightened. Iris touched his sleeve lightly. Not restraint. A reminder. The Crown Magistrate has neutral quarters, she said. Outside the royal household. Kael looked at her, then nodded. Your family can go there tonight. No palace escort. Thomas stared at him. I still won't sign. Not tonight, Kael said. Get them safe first. They left without testimony. Outside, Kael stopped beneath the covered walk. A week ago, I would have ordered him into protection. I know, and you would have hated me for it. I would have hated that you never asked what he was afraid of. Kael looked back at the dark window above the works office. I'm beginning to understand the difference. Iris studied him. Understanding it and living by it are not the same. No, he said, but I'm trying to do the second. The evidence had moved forward, but Garrick or someone with his reach had moved first. Back at the sanctuary, Iris found Kael trying to wrap his bitten arm one-handed. Sit down. I've had worse. That wasn't a suggestion. The Alpha King sat. Iris cut away the torn sleeve. The bite was deep, but clean. As she threaded the needle, Kael watched her hands. You stare when you're thinking, she said. I'm remembering. Iris paused. The first night, she said. You told me you'd smelled me before. Kael van still. What did you mean? For several breaths, only Ember's breathing filled the shelter. I was 17, he said. My mother collapsed after midnight. I ran to the medical wing. Iris resumed the stitch slowly. There was a child outside the apothecary corridor, barefoot. A man told her to stay there. Her hand stopped. My father. I didn't know that then. Kael's eyes lifted to hers. I barely saw your face, but I smelled you. Soap, wool, cold air, something that was simply you. Iris's throat tightened. I remember a boy running past me. Kael said nothing. Black nightshirt, she continued. Blood on one hand. My mother's. The words settled between them. Iris remembered her father's voice through the closed door. Remembered adults refusing to answer questions. Remembered waking the next morning to guards. Kael looked toward Ember. For 15 years, your scent belonged in my memory to the night I lost her. And that corridor belonged to the last night my father still had a name. Neither spoke. They had grown up on opposite sides of the same lie. Iris tied off the final stitch. Kael turned his hand palm up between them. He did not reach for her. He waited. Iris looked at the open hand, then placed her fingers in it. Only for a moment. His wolf stirred behind his eyes, sharp and startled, and his thumb almost moved across her skin. Almost. Iris withdrew first. But not because she wanted to run. Outside, Frost lifted his head toward the eastern wall, and somewhere beneath the castle, old Silver waited in the dark. The Crown Magistrate entered the east cistern at first light. Iris followed Kael down the narrow stone stairs while two neutral clerks recorded every seal they broke and every door they opened. Her burned palms still pulled beneath its bandage when she gripped the rail. Beside her, Kael kept his bitten arm close to his side, the fresh stitches hidden beneath a clean sleeve. The air below was colder than the courtyard, damp with mineral water and old metal. Torchlight slid across the curved walls. Kael stopped beside the main reservoir. You said silver ash comes from stripped lining. Iris crouched at the edge of the channel. Along one section, the silver coating had been eaten away in irregular patches. Not repaired, removed. She scraped a pale residue into a glass dish, added the same reagent she had used on Ember's blood, and watched the material darken. Same reaction. Kael's face hardened. The binder in the wolves could have come from here. By noon, the magistrate had ordered the treasury books brought under guard. For 7 years, the crown had paid for silver relining and emergency pipe work. Iris stood beside Kael as an engineer compared the invoices with what they had just seen. Most of this work never happened, the man said. Kael turned a page. The authorizations all passed through the same office. Lord Garrick Vane. Iris looked at the stripped cistern diagrams, then at the missing silver payments. Access and theft, she said. Kael nodded. Still not enough to name the hand behind the queen. Then we keep going. The monastery records gave them the next piece. They rode north that afternoon with only the magistrate, 2 clerks, and a small escort. Snow covered the road in a thin white sheet. Kael's injured arm had stiffened by the 2nd mile, but he ignored it until Iris noticed. You're pulling the reins one-handed? I'm managing. That wasn't praise. His mouth twitched. For the first hour, neither spoke about the case. Then Kael said, I was supposed to marry at 26. Iris glanced at him. What happened? I refused. Romantic. I had spent 9 years watching alliances turn affection into leverage. It seemed simpler not to give anyone the opportunity. Iris adjusted her gloves around her bandaged palm. That's a lonely way to stay safe. It worked. She looked at him. Did it? Kael did not answer. The monastery archives smelled of dust and wax. Its keepers had preserved duplicate crown records because old treaties required independent copies of royal accounts and medical reports. They found Queen Seraphine's file before sunset. The original entry was plain. Elias Mercer administered moonroot after collapse. The crown version said before. 3 days after the queen's death, 1 page had been formally replaced. The authorization mark belonged to the office of the deputy keeper of the royal seal. 15 years ago, that officer had been Garrick Vane. Iris read the line until the letters blurred. Kael stood beside her without touching. In another box, they found treasury correspondence written in Queen Seraphine's own hand. She had questioned missing silver, inflated East Cistern repairs, and unexplained payments to northern intermediaries only weeks before she died. Outside the archive, snow had begun falling harder. Kael stopped beneath the monastery arch. Every time I smell moonroot, he said, I remember her dying. Iris looked at him. It was the smell of my father trying to save her. The words struck both of them into silence. Sama Erb. Same night. 2 memories, built from opposite sides of a lie. Kael stepped closer. Not enough to trap her. Enough that she could feel the heat of him through the cold. His natural scent reached her beneath wool and snow, and his wolf sharpened behind his eyes when hers rose to meet them. His gaze dropped once to her mouth. Iris wanted him to close the distance. That frightened her less than it should have. I want this, she said. Kael's gaze returned to hers. But I don't want wanting it to become proof that everything is repaired. It won't. He did not kiss her. The restraint hurt in a different way. When they returned to Frostmere after dark, Thomas Reed was waiting with the Crown Magistrate. His wife and son had been moved to neutral quarters outside the royal household. No palace guard had escorted them. No works office clerk knew where they were. Thomas placed a signed statement on the table. These 3 maintenance orders are false, he said. The signatures were copied from routine inspections. The magistrate asked, Will you say that publicly? Thomas swallowed. Yes. What changed? My family is somewhere Vane's people cannot reach before I speak. So did what arrived 10 minutes later. A winter oath diversion order. Ceremonial water would pass through the East Cistern the following day. The engineering office had requested no such rerouting. Garrick's office had accelerated it anyway. Kael read the order once. Then again. We have enough to request a treason warrant. The magistrate nodded. Once the records are authenticated, Kael could have used the king's hold immediately. Iris saw the thought cross his face. He looked at her, then folded the order. No. The magistrate waited. We do this lawfully. For the first time since Iris had known him, Kael chose less power when more was available. The warrant process began. Garrick moved faster. Before midnight, bells rang across Frostmere. An emergency council proclamation had advanced the winter oath by several hours under ancient ritual authority. Ceremonial security was sealed. Council members were already being summoned. Kael crossed to the window. He knows. Iris looked toward the dark line of the eastern wall. Then he's not running. No. Kael's expression changed. He's forcing us to meet him, where he still has power. Far below, the royal wolves began to howl. The winter oath began before sunrise. By the time Iris entered the ceremonial court, every gallery was full. Northern Pack envoys stood beneath their banners. Counselors crowded the stone tiers. Armed guards lined the walls in two colors, black for the crown, gray for the council. Kael stood at the center of the oath circle with the royal pack behind him. Across the court, Garrick Vane watched them with the patient expression of a man who believed time was finally on his side. The crown magistrate had tested the ceremonial basin twice. Clean. Iris tested it a third time. No Silverbane reaction. No contamination, she said. Kael's eyes stayed on Garrick. Then we proceed. The ritual began. A priest spoke the old words. Kael cut his palm and let 3 drops of blood fall into the basin. Then a council steward arrived, carrying the sealed secondary ritual vessel. Iris's stomach dropped. The diversion order covered ceremonial water routed through the east cistern, including the reserve vessel sealed until the oath. They had tested only the basin. That water came through the diversion route. The steward broke the wax seal. Stop. Too late. He poured the vessel into the basin. Storm drank first. Ember followed. Frost lowered his muzzle. Within seconds, Storm staggered. His shoulders locked. Ember collapsed. Frost lurched sideways. The court erupted. Storm snapped at the nearest guard with such force the man fell backward. "Clear the circle!" Kael shouted. Wolves crashed into one another, snarling, confused, pupils blown wide. Garrick's voice rose over the chaos. "The royal pack has rejected its alpha." "No!" Iris shouted. "They've been poisoned." But 3 counselors were already moving. Garrick lifted one hand. Under the Winter Oath Clause, the council may invoke temporary regency when the king loses command of the royal pack. Gray-cloaked guards stepped toward the oath circle. Kael reached for his sword, then stopped. His hand shook. Iris saw the pallor spreading beneath his skin. Kael. His ceremonial cup lay overturned near his boot. He had been dosed too. A wolf slammed into the rail between them. The court fractured into motion. Crown guards shoved back councilmen. Nobles fled the lower benches. Someone overturned the evidence chest beside the magistrate's table, scattering sealed records across the floor. Iris grabbed her medical satchel. Storm turned toward her. Behind Iris, a side sanctuary gate stood open. Snow blew through it. Freedom. No guard blocked the way. No locked door. No king's order. Kael saw it too. His face tightened with pain. Go. Iris stared at him. Go, Iris. He was not asking her to stay. That mattered more than anything. Storm lunged at a fallen guard. Iris turned away from the gate. Kael, stay where you are. His wolf flared in his eyes at the command. He obeyed. Iris moved toward Storm. The black wolf's muscles spasmed beneath his coat. She had seen this rhythm in Ember. Rigidity, tremor, release. 3 seconds. Två. 1. Storm sprang. Iris waded through the spasm, then stepped inside his reach as his legs faltered. She caught his muzzle, forced the antidote between his teeth, and rolled aside before his jaws closed. Storm hit the floor. Kael took one step toward her. "Stay!" Iris shouted again. He stopped. She crawled back to Storm. His breathing changed. Not calm, but slower. Behind her, Garrick shouted, "The woman brought Silverbane into this castle. You all saw it." The magistrate held up the already sealed toxicology report. The powder found in Mercer's satchel was raw Silverbane. The wolves contained processed suspension, not the same preparation. Garrick's expression barely changed. Then someone else prepared it. Ember convulsed. Iris ran to her. At the magistrate's table, Thomas Reed stepped forward exactly as he had sworn he would. "These East Cistern repair signatures are mine," he said. Then he pointed to 3 entries. "These are not." Garrick turned on him. "You expect this court to trust a frightened junior engineer?" Thomas's face went white, but he did not retreat. "My wife and son are under magistrate protection." 2 council guards moved toward the record chest. Bram and 3 crown men intercepted them. Steel cleared scabbards. The clerk shouted over the clash. 3 false repair diversions. All through the East Cistern. All matching documented wolf collapses. Garrick snapped. "Administrative fraud is not treason." Iris was kneeling beside Ember, one hand on the wolf's throat. "Silver ash," she said. The court quieted enough to hear her. "The toxin in their blood uses silver ash as a binder. The East Cistern lining was chemically stripped. We already tested the residue." Kael swayed. Iris saw him catch himself against the oathstone. She wanted to go to him. Couldn't. Ember needed another dose. The clerk continued. "Crown invoices paid for silver repairs that never occurred." Garrick laughed once. "So, accuse me of theft." The magistrate lifted the monastery copy. Queen Seraphine was investigating those same missing silver accounts before she died. Garrick's smile vanished. And Elias Mercer administered Moonroot after her collapse. The crown page, claiming otherwise, was replaced under your seal authority. The court already knew what the documents meant. Garrick looked toward the gray-cloaked captain. "Seize the king." The captain hesitated. "Regency is in effect. Not if the pack still recognizes him," Iris said. Storm moved. The black wolf struggled upright. He looked at Iris first, then Kael. Slowly, painfully, Storm crossed the oath circle and stood beside his alpha. Ember followed, unsteady but conscious. Frost was last. The ancient wolf nearly fell twice. Still, he reached Kael and pressed his silver shoulder against the king's leg. Garrick's constitutional claim died before anyone spoke. The gray-cloaked captain lowered his weapon. The magistrate stepped forward. The records and Reed's sworn testimony were intact. The recovered pack had destroyed the regency claim. "Lord Garrick Vane," the magistrate said, "you are detained pending formal trial for treason, conspiracy against the crown, evidence tampering, and attempted regency by fraud." Garrick looked at Kael. "You would let a magistrate arrest me?" Kael was pale, blood running from his palm, but his voice carried. "Yes." He did not invoke the king's hold. "Because this time," Kael said, "the law does not need my fear to decide." The magistrate's guards took Garrick. Only then did Iris allow herself to look fully at Kael. His knees buckled. She reached him before he hit the floor. Kael woke before noon. Iris was sitting beside the bed. When his eyes opened, one hand wrapped around a cooling cup of tea she had forgotten to drink. The poison had been mild compared with what was given to the wolves, but it had left him pale and weak beneath the blankets. His gaze found her immediately. "You stayed." Iris looked at him over the rim of the cup. "You were poisoned." That was not my question. No, she said. It wasn't. He did not press. Outside the infirmary, Frostmere was already changing. Garrick Vane had been transferred into the custody of the Crown Magistrate before sunrise. His council faction had fractured almost immediately. Some claimed ignorance. Others demanded separate hearings. The Winter Oath had been suspended, then formally declared invalid because the royal pack had been chemically compromised. But Iris cared about only one hearing. 3 days later, she stood beneath the same black and silver banners where nobles had whispered Poisoner's daughter. This time, no guard stood beside her. The chief magistrate read from a corrected record. Elias Mercer's conviction for the murder of Queen Seraphine is vacated. The Crown acknowledges that the medical evidence used against him was altered and materially false. His professional honor and family name are restored. Iris did not realize she had stopped breathing until the magistrate placed a small brass object in her hand. Her father's apothecary seal, not a gift. Property returned. 15 years of shame did not disappear because a court finally spoke the truth. Her father did not come back. Her childhood did not return. But his name was his again, and so was hers. Kael rose from the throne before the court could disperse. He was still recovering, but his voice carried without effort. There is another matter. The nobles settled. Iris looked at him. Kael did not look away. Iris Mercer was confined by my order before the evidence justified that confinement. A murmur moved through the hall. Kael continued. Lord Vane manipulated this court. He did not make that decision for me. Silence. That decision was mine. Iris felt the words land differently because he was saying them here, in front of the people who had watched her led away. I used the king's hold because fear made certainty feel more important than fairness. I was wrong. One counselor stood. Your Majesty, emergency authority exists precisely so the Crown can act before proof is complete, and that is why it requires limits. Kael placed a sealed decree on the clerk's table. From this day forward, any use of the king's hold must be reviewed within 24 hours by the Crown Magistrate and one representative of the Pack Council. The chamber erupted. You would weaken the throne. You would invite delay. Kael raised no hand to silence them. He let them object, then said, Yes. It limits me. That quieted the room more effectively than a command. A power that cannot survive review is not a power I intend to keep. Iris watched him while the council argued around him. This was not an apology meant only for her. It would cost him something after she left the room. That mattered. A week later, the Independent Medical Board summoned Iris. They reviewed her notes, the wolf recoveries, and the toxicology work she had already submitted during the investigation. At the end, the senior examiner slid a written offer across the table. Royal Wolf Healer and Apothecary. Iris read it twice. You understand, the examiner said. This appointment comes from the board, not His Majesty. I do. Will you accept? Iris touched the Mercer seal beneath her fingers. Yes. That evening, she entered the sanctuary through the main gate. No hidden bottle beneath her cloak. No laundress apron. No stolen access. The guard bowed his head. Royal Apothecary Mercer. Ember reached her first. Storm followed at a slower pace, his black coat shining again. Frost remained near the old stone wall, watching with tired silver eyes. Kael stood farther inside the enclosure. He had recovered enough to leave the infirmary, though Iris noticed he still favored one side. You should be resting, she said. So I've been told. By educated men? His mouth curved. Repeatedly. She stopped a few feet from him. There was no moonroot open between them. No Silverbane. No smoke from a burning archive. Only snow. wolves, pine, and the cold evening air. Kael inhaled. His expression changed. Not with pain this time. Something older and more instinctive moved behind his silver-gray eyes. Iris felt it too, not as a command, but as a strange pull beneath the quiet. The wolves noticed. Ember lifted her head. Storm's ears turned toward them. Kael's voice lowered. The bond may know what it wants. Iris's pulse quickened. He did not step closer. It doesn't answer for you. She looked toward the sanctuary gate. Open. No guards blocking it. No decree keeping her inside. And if I leave, I'll open the gate myself. And then? Kael's eyes stayed on hers. Hope you choose to come back. Iris looked at the open gate one last time. That's the difference now. What is? I can leave. She stepped toward him. I'm staying anyway. Kael exhaled as if he had been holding that breath for 15 years. He lifted one hand but stopped before touching her. Iris closed the distance herself. Their first kiss was quiet. No court. No oath. No claim. Just choice. Behind them, Ember settled into the snow. Storm lay down beside her. Frost lowered his head as though something long unfinished had finally come to rest. The gate remained open. Iris did not look back.